Alright guys, I wanted to make this video because on Friday, Elon Musk was on TED Talks where he was interviewed by Chris Anderson and he talked about his new projects digging tunnels under LA, the latest from Tesla and SpaceX, and his motivation for building a future on Mars. What's really interesting about this interview is that he talks about underground tunnels and the D.U.M.B, the deep underground military bases, like they're already in action, like these tunnels are already below us and somewhat in operation. And so I was going to go ahead and go through the video and dissect it myself, but I went on YouTube and I found this channel called FaceLiketheSun, and the guy does a really good job dissecting this interview himself. So I went ahead and just recorded it and posted it on my channel, and in the description below I'm going to leave a link to this guy's channel so that you can go ahead and check it out. Alright guys, tell me what you think.
Now, Elon Musk just had a sit-down TED Talk, a 40-minute interview with Chris Anderson on Friday, April 28th, and there's a lot of stuff in there. He talked about The Boring Company and SpaceX, Tesla, Hyperloop, Donald Trump, and a lot more. To talk about almost every house being solar-paneled rooftops within 40, 50, 60 years, his plans for colonization of Mars. He's also developing basically Optimus Prime. The guy is either a super genius or he's just a mouthpiece for the military-industrial complex, pushing out these technologies into the masses slowly but surely. But the one thing that they talked about at the beginning of this discussion, which I'll link to, you guys can watch the whole 40 minutes if you want to, was this idea of these tunnel systems, a new way of transportation, and add to that a whole change in the car industry, how cars are owned and shared amongst the community. We've talked about this with the smart cities and ultra shared social cities discussed at the Davos conference, where nobody owns anything, everybody shares everything, and that sort of thing. Steps towards that sort of system is categorically being built or planned to be built, and Elon Musk is the guy telling us. Now, to me, this whole talk at the beginning, he is basically admitting that D.U.M.Bs exist, deep underground military bases. Listen to what he has to say here.
There's no real limit to how many levels of tunnel you can have. So you can go much further deep than you can go up. The deepest mines are much deeper than the tallest buildings are tall. So you can alleviate any arbitrary level of open congestion with the 3D tunnel network. This is a very important point. So a key rebuttal to the tunnels is that if you add one layer of tunnels, then that will simply alleviate congestion, will get used up, and then you'll be back where you started, back with congestion. But you can go to any arbitrary number of tunnels, any number of levels.
Now, this is really interesting to me. He says you can go down any number of levels, an arbitrary number of levels. That's bizarre, okay? That's a bizarre thing to say, because if we are where we are told we are, then there is a limit. There is most certainly not an arbitrary number. There is a point at which we would hit molten lava or magma or whatever, right? But I think by suggesting this, he's indicating something else. Now, whatever cosmology or cosmological shape of the Earth or whatever you want to believe, regardless, there has always been this notion of a bottomless pit, some sort of eternal downward spiral into the abyss, okay? So the fact that he would say that there's an arbitrary number of levels indicates to me that, one, they already have deep underground military bases, and that's been verified through various eyewitnesses and people's testimonies and things like that. But also that beyond a certain level, there is something more mysterious, more interesting than simply molten lava. Perhaps the whole biblical narrative of a Sheol, a bottomless pit, is true. And, it does make you wonder. These big faces of media doing things outside their job description, although I suppose it can be under their job description of, film producer or whatnot. I'm talking about James Cameron. If you guys recall, he made a movie called Deep Sea Challenge 3D, where he went into this ball, this sphere, and was able to travel down to the Mariana Trench, which we've talked about, in relationship to the deep and, that sort of thing. And it would make sense since he is the director of the movie, The Abyss, if you guys remember. But in any case, I thought it was very interesting language used here by Elon Musk. And here's another clip of him talking about how it doesn't take much to drill beneath your feet without you ever knowing.
As you want. I think if you were to do something like a DC to New York Hyperloop, I think you'd probably want to go underground the entire way because it's a high density area. You're going under a lot of buildings and houses. And if you go deep enough, you cannot detect the tunnel. Sometimes people think, well, it's going to be pretty annoying to have a tunnel dug under my house. Like if that tunnel is dug more than about 3 or 4 tunnel diameters beneath your house, you will not be able to detect it being dug at all. In fact, if you're able to detect the tunnel being dug, whatever device you're using, you can get a lot of money for that device from the Israeli military, who is trying to detect tunnels from Hamas, and from the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, that trying to detect drug tunnels. So, the reality is that Earth is incredibly good at absorbing vibrations, and once the tunnel depth is below a certain level, it is undetectable. Maybe if you have a very sensitive seismic instrument, you might be able to detect it.
I really do believe this is part of the externalization of the hierarchy, where they are externalizing this technology to rebuild civilization under the smart grid, under all this technology, the fourth industrial revolution, part of the United Nations Sustainable Development 2030 agenda, all leading to the goal for digital immortality in 2045, which interestingly is 33 years after 2012, where we know there were celestial signs that indicated a change of aeon according to New Agers. But I thought it was very strange that that would be the year that was celebrated. Nothing happened, allegedly, right? But then 33 years later, they are promoting the year 2045 as the year of immortality, digital immortality. This could definitely be part of the image and mark of the beast kingdom, all being built right around us. So I don't know when things will happen. I'm not a date setter, but we can look at the times and seasons. We can see how invasive technology is becoming in our lives, and we just have to be aware. And my whole mission here on this channel, moving forward especially, is to warn the church continually about the technological advancements. The articles I see coming out about transhumanism now hitting the church, now hitting the mainstream, are all omitting a couple very important points. One, the Nephilim, okay, and the sons of God, and that whole part of it, the pre-flood world. What was that like? And in conjunction, eschatology. Why did Jesus say, as it were in the days of Noah? What was going on in the days of Noah? The church is completely unaware. Of course, the Tower of Babel even was built, or being built, during Noah's lifetime. So there's a whole lot happening in this world that seems to be headed in a direction that was prophesied thousands of years ago. And with Elon Musk, I think this is part of the externalization of the hierarchy, revealing the things that they have been hiding for years and years. This is designed exposure, okay? And this is partly why the corruption in the governments and stuff like that are also being exposed and being brought to light. It is a changing of times. It is a changing of the guard. They need to rebuild. They need to rebuild this new utopic situation for the earth, which will ultimately be our enslavement in a world where Jesus has to shorten these days, or else all flesh would be destroyed. But for the sake of the elect, he will return to put an end to all this madness that is about to be unleashed on this earth. And why deep underground military bases? Well, in Revelation 6 verse 15, when the day of the Lord comes, the kings of the earth and the great ones and the generals and the rich and the powerful and everyone, slave and free, hid themselves in caves and among the rocks of the mountains, calling to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide from us the face of him who is seated on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of their wrath has come, and who can stand? They know that the Lord is returning one day, and they need to hide. And so that's why they build these deep underground military bases, in addition to connecting with the deep, the underworld, Sheol, and doing things that are abominable to God. Because remember Ephesians 5:11, take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them, for it is shameful even to speak of the things that they do in secret. But these things are being exposed, folks, and there's going to be a great awakening and a great apostasy. People realizing what's going on, understanding the times, coming to Jesus, repenting, and the fulfillment of the promise where we will be resurrected in new bodies, immortal, living in a new heaven and a new earth. Thanks for watching, guys. If you want to support, please consider doing so on Patreon. Have an awesome day. God bless.